to the Mission Dorothy podcast with your hostess, Tamika's Williams. Hello. Welcome to the Mission Dorothy podcast. Thank you guys so much for coming by today. I hope your day has been a beautiful day, or if you're just starting your day, I hope that you do have a beautiful and very positively insightful day. So, today I want us to talk about the third pillar of the six pillars of self esteem. We are in the middle of our sixth series on the six pillars of self esteem by Nathaniel Branden. So far, we've talked about living consciously, we've talked about self acceptance, we've done some work on compassion for ourselves and others meditatively, and we've also talked about embracing our strengths. If you have not had the opportunity to go back and listen to those episodes and you chose this one first, please take some time out after you listen to this episode to go back and listen to those as well as we work to enrich your ability to create the authentic life that you want for yourself. So, today, the topic is self responsibility. Now, judging on the length of my episodes, y'all know I can talk, right? I mean, come on, I'm a therapist, so this is what I do for a living. I can talk about this topic forever, and I may have to revisit this and do a self responsibility series because I really think that this is, essential to the quality of the authentic life that you are creating for yourself. And so when I think about self responsibility, I think about self reliance, right? For those of you who are parents, or even if we were to think about our own parents, I know all parents aren't created equally, but I think that there are parents. I know within myself, self reliance is one of those things that I definitely wanted to make sure that my daughter learned, right? I wanted her to be able to rely on herself and not rely on, other people to, how do I say, build up her self esteem and her trust within herself, right? I wanted her to be able to, work to trust her own voice, her own thoughts, her own beliefs. I wanted her to work to be able to, uh, pull herself up when she fall and be able to just kind of bounce back and be resilient, right? Now, it's fair to say, and some of y'all might get upset, but hey, it is what it is. Um, but it's fair to say that we do have some women who feel that self reliance is not, that important to them because they live in a world of passivity, right? So some women feel that there is some power in passivity and helplessness, versus taking charge of their own destiny, right? So these are women who are looking for someone to come and save them. This is women who are, afraid to kind of make their own choices, are afraid to accept the responsibility of their own, choices and actions. And often, society will encourage this mindset of being rescued, right? So the thing about this is a lot of women may dream of a rescuer, right? Oh my God, who's going to be my hero? Come save me. Just the damsel in distress mentality, right? And so they're looking for this rescuer to make, their world right for them, right? They're looking for someone to give them their happiness. They're looking for someone to make them feel fulfilled. They're looking for someone to build self-esteem within them, right? And the thing about this is that you have some mothers who work to raise their daughters to feel that this is how you're supposed to be as a woman. Oftentimes when we think about the word submissive, this is the definition that pops up, and it's so wrong, right? Submissive is not, this whole waiting for your hero to come rescue you and you losing control over your sense of self or your happiness or fulfillment or your self-esteem, right? So when we think about, you know, um, self reliance, when we think about resiliency, being self responsible is a huge part of that. Okay? So let's get into this definition of self responsibility so that we can learn how to be more responsible for our actions and our choices and our life, right? So the definition states, well, first, let me give you the definition based off of the dictionary. The dictionary states that self responsibility is the state or fact of being responsible, answerable, or accountable for something within one's power, control, or management. I wanted to start off there because I thought that that was a really good definition when it comes to self responsibility. But I really love one's power, control, or management. And when I think about this, I think about, the serenity prayer, right? And so as you go about working on self responsibility, I think the serenity prayer will be a good um, partner when you start to see yourself struggling. So, when you start to see yourself struggling as you work through building self responsibility within yourself, I want you to rely on the serenity prayer for um, support. Okay. All right. So, according to Nathaniel Branden, the self responsibility means to recognize that we are the author of our choices and actions, that we must be the ultimate source of our own fulfillment, that no one exists to serve us. Let me just repeat that no one exists to serve us, right? That no one is coming to make our life right for us. Let me repeat that. Girl, okay, hear me when I say it says that no one is coming to make our life right for us or make us happy or to give us self esteem. Now, we know that I can run with this one, right? I could do an episode on each part of this definition because y'all already know, just listening to the definition is chock full of goodness and, topics that we can definitely talk about. So let's break this definition down. So the first part says to recognize that we are the author of our choices and actions. Now, my example for this one is going to be anger management. Author of our choices and actions. This means that you are responsible for the choices that you make and your actions. So when someone quote unquote make you mad, You are responsible for how you respond and how you behave once you are feeling these negative feelings, right? So when we think about anger management, I want you to be really clear about something. Anger management is important because for someone who needs anger management, this means that you are not doing a great job at managing your feelings, right? You are not taking out proper time to process what has just happened, and instead you immediately react, and your reaction is usually negative, aggressive, mean, disturbing, right? So, most of the time when people get upset, the blame has to land somewhere, right? So then you hear someone say, well, so and so made me mad, right? What we need to understand is, as the definition states, that you are the author of your choice. So you can choose on whether you get angry or not. You can choose on whether you get upset or let it just roll off your back. Understand that no one should be able to make, keyword is make in quotes, you angry, mad, pissed off. Like, it's up to you. Because when you give someone that power, now they know how to push your buttons. So anytime they feel like they want to make you feel a certain way, they already know what to do and say or not to do for you in order to get you upset. So stop giving people your power. You own the power as it relates to your feelings. You are the author of your choices and your actions when it comes to your emotions, right? So understand, stop placing blame on everyone else. Now, granted, I understand that other people can contribute to how you feel about a certain situation, but ultimately, their contribution doesn't mean anything until you assign it to something. If you don't assign it and you sit and decide what to do with the information, the situation, whatever the stimulus is, then, you gain control. Like, you're the one in control of that. So really work to stop giving away your power to other people, because it's not their responsibility, it's yours. Right? Stop taking on other people's responsibilities. When people are working to get to, contribute to getting you angry, upset, mad, pissed off, leave the responsibility with them so they can try to figure out, why are they working against you? Why are they working so hard to make you feel or promote negative feelings within you? Right? Stop taking on that responsibility and own the responsibility of deciding what to do with what they're giving you. We often feel like we don't have control when in actuality we do. We just react instead of sitting back and giving ourselves time to, you know, assess what's going on in that moment, right? So please understand, the next time that someone works to contribute any negative feelings within yourself, understand that you do have power. You choose how you want to feel about it. And if you decide that you want to be angry about it, if you decide that you want to be upset, pissed off, all of these negative feelings, then own it. But be mindful of the actions after that. Because what you don't want to do is start working against yourself when it comes to whatever the situation is, when it comes to the negative contribution that this other person is trying to give you. You don't have to receive it. You really don't. You do have a choice in the matter right then and there, right? And as I tell my clients, when you feel bagged into a wall, you can always say, well, you know what? Give me a minute to think about that. Or give me some time to process this. And you know what? I'll get back to you on that. Instead of just reacting straight out the gate. Okay? So, in understanding self responsibility, you are the author of your choices and your actions. So, stop putting the blame on everybody else and understand that you do have to learn how to take responsibility for your choices and your actions. This is grown up, real woman talk, right? Own your responsibility for the messed up choices, the bad decisions, the negative reactions, cutting up, acting a fool, showing out because of, whatever. Just own it. Okay? And the sooner you own it, the better you will be able to learn how to respond positively to it. But if you're ignoring it, if you feel like it's okay to react in this way, then you're going to continue to keep giving away your power. Then you're going to continue to not be self responsible. You're going to continue to be in denial about yourself, how you behave, and how you show up in this world. Right? I often share, I want to share a little something with you guys right now because, I don't mind sharing my stuff because I feel like when I go through stuff, it ain't just for me, and especially with me being able to walk in my purpose, my life work, I can truly understand that a lot of the things that I've been through is not just for me, it's for you too. Right? And so back when I was younger, like in my 20s, I was a little hothead, right? I had this victim mentality because as a child, I was bullied like up until the 6th grade. I was talked about. I mean, people found all kinds of things to talk about me negatively. I was the tallest girl in class. I was um, somewhat of a tomboy. I, um, you know, was really, really dark skinned. Like I'm a dark skinned woman, but I was probably 3, 4 shades darker when I was younger because I just loved to be outside in the sun, right? And, they would talk about my name. They talked about my forehead because my forehead was big. Well, let me say, I guess they thought my forehead was big. My forehead is a good little size, but I'm good with it. You know what I'm saying? So, it was like people just found stuff to talk about me. And so, for the most part, I became a quiet child. And something happened in 6th grade. It was like I just woke up one morning and I had been walking in darkness all this time. And it was like somebody just cut the light on. And I was finally able to recognize and see what it was that was happening to me and how it made me feel. Prior to, I was walking in the dark, numb, and just really, I was trying my best to ignore it all. It was happening so often to where I just worked to ignore it. And I still, chose to be who I am. I didn't change, I didn't hide or from people. I still went out and played and had fun, and I still had friends and all of that, but people just chose to talk negatively about me. But it was something about 6th grade. I guess by 6th grade I had had enough. So it was like I went from 0 to 10, right? So if we think about the Lakers scale of 0 to 10, well, we also have 1 through 9 in the middle of that, right? Oh, I skipped all that. I went straight to 10, but what I didn't understand was that there were some other ways I could have handled the negativity that I was receiving from other people, right? So by the 6th grade, I started to lash out. I I never fought because my words were so powerful. It was almost like I punched you in the mouth, right? But I punched you in the mouth with my words. So it was enough to get you off of me, and it was enough for you not to ever come back to try me again, right? Now we know that if I was lashing out verbally, all kinds of explicit words came with that, correct? And so I just started to, in my mind, I started taking up for myself. I wasn't an aggressive child, like once 6th grade, once I got into 6th grade, moving forward with this mentality, I wasn't aggressive as in like all in people face and all of that type of stuff. You really did have to like step to me. You had to step to me with something negative, and then if I felt like I had to defend myself, then I say what I need to say, and then I'm done. And most of the time, once I say what I need to say, when nobody else, I mean, they weren't coming with nothing else. Like literally, my word was the period, right? I say what I needed to say, period, and then it was squashed. And so in that, I found some type of, I found security. I found security in that because now I can stop people from constantly talking about me negatively. So I thought, right? Because you really can't stop people. They have to choose to stop themselves. But this is me taking on the responsibility of other people, right? With this mentality. And so what this mentality was really a victim mentality, right? I was so tired of being a victim from, basically 0 to 6th grade. At 6th grade, I started lashing out with the victim mentality. I felt like I needed to protect myself. And so going off and cussing people out was my defense mechanism to get people off of me. So when I was in my 20s, I had a lot of situations where I was a hairstylist at the time, and I would get into it with one particular stylist that worked, in the shop with me, because he would just do some little rogue things back in the day. Like try to steal your clients, or if you go out to lunch, well, she's not here right now, but you can come in and I curl your hair type of thing, right? So I found myself cussing him out a lot. But the thing was, I was cussing him out in front of everybody at the salon. And I was thinking that I was justified in this behavior because he did something to me, right? So my ego is like, well, girl, he did something to you, so you got the right to cuss him out and don't even feel bad about it either. Right? That's the ego saying. That's the ego talking, right? Girl, you right. Say what you need to say, bag him up off of you, and then move on. Right? So my ego is like Miss Badass, right? So I found myself cussing him out, and this was like on the regular. I was doing this regularly, right? So it wasn't until one day someone pulled me to the side. He's actually a friend of a friend. I'm sorry, no. He is my friend's brother-in-law, right? And he's a pastor. Now, mind you, when I was cussing him, well, let me tell you the story. You will see what I was getting ready to say. So he pulled me to the side and he said, Tamikis, he said, can I speak with you for a minute? And I was like, sure. Now, mind you, I had just finished cussing out, the coworker, right? So he said, Tamikis, he said, you are a beautiful girl. He said, but when you open your mouth, it makes you ugly as hell. And I'm sitting here like giving him the side eye, like, oh, you getting ready to get it too, right? That's that ego, right? And so I looked at him and I said, so, what? Like, what do you mean? He said, every time I come in here, now mind you, he came almost like every Friday. It was either every Friday or every 2 weeks on a Friday. He said, pretty much every time I come in here, you're cussing him out. And he said, every time I witness this, I'm really shocked by it because I know who you really are. He said, and I know that this is not the core of Tamika's, like who you really are. And so he said, I need for you to really think about how you show up, like how you make yourself look in front of all of these people. Now, mind you, he wasn't really talking about like me being really worried about what people thought about me, but he was, right? But he was also talking about how I was choosing to show up in the world. Man, and I'm sorry. This makes me emotional. It makes me emotional every time I share this story because I'm sorry, bear with me on this one. Because I did not realize how I was showing up in the world when I would act that way, right? I had this victim mentality and I thought that I was justified in my actions. And this makes me cry because I'm so, I've always been Tamika's, right? I've always been Tamika's. Everybody that know me from high school, like they know I've always chosen to be myself. And I'm just a mature version of that, as a grown woman. But I had no idea how I was showing up in the world because this angry, basically little girl, which was the little girl within me who was angry and mad and hurt about how people would talk about her. This is how she chose to show up and defend herself in the world, right? So he was like, I don't think you realize how you make yourself look as well as how, just how you show up in this world. He said, you have all kinds of people coming through this shop on a daily basis. And a lot of them know you because y'all have a lot of regulars come through. He said, but a lot of them don't know you. A lot of them is their first time meeting you and they're walking out of this door with this negative perception of you as this old rude, disrespectful, loudmouth little girl. Now, mind you, I'm in my early 20s, so we're kind of considered we're considered grown women, but little girl actions I was displaying, right? So in this victim mentality, I was showing people the a who I was really not. When I look at the core of myself, my authentic self is so on the other side of this victim mentality. And so he said, you have all kinds of people in here. You got people's mothers and grandmothers and, grandfathers. And, you got people, children running around here. Like your daughter is running around here. And you are like acting like this is like childish behavior, right? So I started working at this salon at 19. And around this time, I was in my early 20s. So this was probably, well, I guess mid 20s then. Let me say that because I had my daughter around 20. Well, I had her at 25 when I had her. Yes, I was 25 when I had her. And so my baby is like running around the shop as a little toddler, right? And so he just brought to my attention of how I was showing up in the world, and people were walking out of the salon with this negative connotation of me. And because he knew me outside of the shop. He had been coming there for a long time, so he knew who I was at the core of me. And he told me that I needed to start thinking about how I wanted to show up in the world. He told me that I needed to work on passing more than failing, right? And work with me, y'all. This is all about self-responsibility. I know I'm I'm not veering away, but it might feel like I am from the whole definition, but trust and believe you'll get it. So during this time, I was not being responsible for my actions, right? I was not being responsible for my choices. I felt like I thought I was, right? In that victim mentality, in that ego, I thought I was being responsible. But in actuality, I was just being a victim who felt like she had to protect herself from the negative feelings that she felt as a child from other people, right? So he said, well, you really need to work at passing more than failing. And I was like, well, okay, so what do you mean? So while he's talking to me, mind you now, my heart is racing. Like it was taking everything in my spirit to not cry because we was standing on the floor and he was just kind of talking with me kind of one-on-one, right? And so he said, you pass when you don't give someone control of you, of your mood, of your choices, of, like your behaviors. He said, you fail when you give people control over your behaviors, your choices, your actions, your mood. He said, and every time you sit in here and you cuss this man out, you give him control. And he said, and why do you think that he do what it is that he do? Like he know, or maybe, you know what? And when I think about it, maybe he just didn't. Maybe I think he knew and he didn't know. He had some stuff going on himself, and I think that he knew, but he didn't know. I think part of that was just kind of a way of life of just kind of survival mode. And the other part was just being ignorant, right? I'm sorry to say it, but just having those ignorant actions, right? But the crazy part is, I so love him though. I so love him. He is so family to me because we were able to move beyond this situation eventually, right? And I'll tell you how we were able to do that. But so the gist of it is, he helped me to realize that I was no longer controlling my mood. I was allowing this person to control my mood, my actions, my choices. And once after having this talk with him, I thanked him, gave him a hug, and I went straight to the bathroom and I was bawling. I was crying so hard. I had to like grab paper towels, put them over my mouth so I wouldn't be so loud. Like that conviction hit me like a Mack truck. I felt so convicted of every time I had cussed somebody out for the first time. The first time I had shut my ego up and allowed myself to be first and foremost present and acknowledge my feelings in that moment. And when I say I told myself then that I really had to work on passing because I was tired of failing. And, you know, then starting to also realize where this feeling came from, kind of, sort of. But I'm going to be real with you. I really didn't get where that feeling came from until I was sitting in session with a client. And as I was talking to her, I was talking to me, right? I was talking to her about anger and just, having this victim mentality. And as I was talking to her, I realized that that's what I was dealing with. It was a victim mentality. And I tell y'all, I learned so much about myself when I'm with my clients. It's amazing. Like, just, and just by listening as I talk to my clients, because I'm I'm not perfect. I'm not I'm a work in progress just like everybody else, right? But when I'm talking to my clients, it's amazing how much I'm also talking to myself. Like, the mental notes be running, right? So I started to work at passing and the whole pass and fail, right? So I passed when I didn't allow him to when I didn't allow myself to make the choice to become angry with whatever action he was displaying. And I failed some more, right? But over time, I started passing more and failing less. So now I'm just giving myself high fives, like, yes, girl, right? I'm high fiving myself, right? Because I was so excited about the fact that I was learning how to control my mood and own my own responsibility, you know? And now when I failed, I felt it, right? It was no longer me being numb to the emotions of whoever I was cussing out and my own emotions of me validating, my ego validating this negative behavior, right? So I so now here I am. When I would fail, I felt bad about it. Like, I would cry about it. If it was at the shop, I would go into the bathroom, cry about it. I go sit in my car, cry about it. Or if it was like in public, when I got in the car, I would cry about it. Or when I got home, I would cry about it then. Yes, I'm a crybaby. I'm an emotional being. I own it and I'm okay with it. Right? Because to me, crying is detoxing. It really does help me to feel better. So as time passed, I started to pass more and really gain great control over being the master of my choices and my actions. But as I got older, I started having some issues around the same age. Now we're looking at maybe, we're starting to look, I'll say between 25 and 30. So now we're between 25 and 30, right? Well, let me say maybe like between 27 and 30, somewhere in there. So even though I'm working hard at trying to pass, I still fail occasionally, right? We all do. And so I started having these issues where in my community, because I was living in a community that I was sleeping there, but I wasn't living there. So my life was pretty much in Atlanta, and I was just sleeping. My house was really just asleep, and the rest of my life was in Atlanta. So then I started to fraternize and just kind of, get to know my community, started getting out, going places, shopping in my community, doing all of these things to be a part of my community. And I started having issues with individuals in my community who I think, just was not, it was a race thing, right? Just to kind of keep it real. I had a couple of situations as it relates to race with, just some Caucasian individuals. And I found myself, lashing out again, right? So I had three experiences, two of them, and it wasn't with just Caucasians, it was with uh other, African American. Like I had these three situations, right? So just to be, two were with Caucasians, and then the third one was with this African American lady, or I think she was African, but whatever. I'm just throwing out the race because I wanted you to understand, what type of situations I was in. But at the end of the day, I was just having a difficult time interacting with people, and how they treated me less than, right? So in these three situations, well, the third one, it wasn't bad. I actually passed on that one. So let me just say, in these two situations, they were really bad. The first one, I had pretty much cussed out two women in the store and literally shut the store down, just to keep it real. I'm not proud of this. I'm sharing this because I'm letting you know how bad it got to the point that led me to no longer react in this way, period. So I, it was one of those situations where I was in line, and how the person keeps saying, next person in line, next person in line. And the two ladies were in front of me, and um the guy kept asking like 4 or 5 times. It was around the holidays. It was like 30 people in line behind me, and they were just standing there talking and not paying attention. And, we're all just pretty much trying to let them know. He said next person in line, but it was like they was just ignoring. So I decided to go around them and go on and get rung up. And as soon as I walked around them, they had so much to say, right? So now you paying attention. So at this time, the smack that they was talking caught the attention of other people in the store. So then by the time I asked the guy to just hold on for a minute, and I walked back out of line and came around to address them, and I did. I addressed them in such a negative way. I said some things that I was very shocked that I said it. Um and I don't think they'll ever forget it in their lifetime. But I said what I said. Nobody was moving in the store. Everybody was looking at us, and it was bad. And I said what I needed to say, and then I walked off, got back over it to the register. The guy rung me up, and I proceeded to walk out the store. And when I walked out the store, everybody in the store started clapping, right? Everybody is clapping because they were, I guess, validating my ignorant behavior, right? They was looking at the ladies twice as well because they was holding up the line, and it was just just how it all went down. And of course my ego is like, well, you tried, you gave them time to go over, they didn't, and you had to defend yourself because they was talking about you first, and this and that, right? That's what my ego was saying. But at the end of the day, I fell victim to that ego, and I said some really bad things, and left out the store. And when I left out the store, my daughter was sitting up in the front on a little bench, and once again, not really realizing who's in the store, right? I walked out and got in my car, and I cried so hard. Like, I sat out in that parking lot for probably about 20, 25 minutes or so, and I cried so hard. I felt so bad. I had to ask God for forgiveness. I had to like really work hard to move beyond this one. Like, I struggled with this one because I said some stuff. And irregardless of the fact of what the lady said, I did not make the proper choice, because I could have chose to ignore them, get my stuff rung up, and walk on out the store. But my ego won that day, right? And so that sat with me. It still sits with me to this day, and it's been over 20 years. And it still bothers me that I kind of shut that store down like I did that day. Like, it still bothers me, of my actions that day. But hey, having compassion and empathy for myself, you live and you learn, and you just don't repeat it, right? So, little while after that situation, I end up having another situation where I was at a restaurant, and the guy out the restaurant kept getting my order wrong, so they asked me to pull over at a certain spot and wait for them to correct my order, um so that I can give them, I'm sorry, so that they can correct my order, and they'll bring it out to me. So I'm sitting out for about 15 minutes. So I'm getting tired of waiting. I decided to get out the car, walk down to the window. My food was just sitting there in a bag. Nobody brought it out to me. Um, and it was crazy because all it was a sandwich, and I don't eat cheese. I don't eat cheese on my sandwich. I asked them no cheese. Came back down. They put another sandwich in there with cheese. So now you're wasting my time. I'm upset about it. And I'm hearing somebody blowing their horn like really, 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 really hard, and all hollering and cussing out the window. You can't park there. You can't park there. And I'm just like, what? Now, mind you, I'm already upset. I've been waiting all this time. First, I waited for my order. You got my order wrong. Had to wait again. Came back down. Order wrong again. And at this point, I just grabbed the bag, took it to the car, and I was like, I just wiped the cheese off because I don't have any more time to sit here. But in the interim, while I'm grabbing my bag, this person is just hollering, yelling, cussing, screaming. I mean, it was so out of proportion with what was happening. I just was like, what is wrong with this guy? So I'm already in my feelings. I walk up to this guy's car and literally put my head down, because he had his window down, in his face. And I just went off. Cussed him out, all kinds of names, said what I needed to say. And this man could have rolled his window up on me, drugged me for 50 miles down the street. He could have shot me in the face. He could have punched me in the face. I think he was so shocked that I was in his face. I think, he didn't know what to say. So I said what I need to say, walked back to my car, and still in the anger, right? So this day I chose anger. That other day I chose anger, right? Wasn't being responsible at this point. That victim mentality showed back up, and I showed out. And so got in the car, looked back, checked on my daughter. When I turned around, he was parked in front of me, blocked me in, right? So I'm just like, you got to be kidding me. So at the time I was driving a Jeep, backed the Jeep up in the little grass, pulled off, of course, throwing up my hand and all that, and pulled off. Now, this situation right here was the situation that ended it all, right? Now, mind you, over the years, I had been doing a really great job of passing. I didn't have that many fails, but these situations right here were like, I guess, He will always test you, right? And so this situation, when I got home, I processed it. I felt bad about it. I was really upset with myself for putting myself in such a situation where that could have been dangerous. I did a really lot of self-analysis with this situation, right? Because I had told myself that I thought I had, I thought I beat this thing. Like I thought I was able to be really responsible for my actions and my choices, which I was, but there are moments when you just fall off the cuff, and I really sat with this one, and I promised myself, I just was like, girl, no, like, ego, shut up, because right now I need to have a talk with this is just about me and my authentic self. Like, let's and the little girl within me, right? My inner child. So my inner child, my authentic self, we all just sat down, had a conversation with each other, right? I had to really work on that inner child work to heal the little girl within me who felt the need to have to defend herself in such a negative way, right? So I had to do inner child work over some time to heal her. And then I had to really sit with my authentic self and to assess how authentic was I being? Like, how am I showing up to the world again in these situations? Because I had promised myself that I was way better than this and was not going to allow people to have this type of control, right? Anymore. But then I had to be realistic with myself too, that I am human. I am going to make mistakes, but I really had to work a little harder at choosing to be responsible for my actions and my choices. And so after this situation, I was like, there, no ma'am, this is, you cannot act this way anymore. Period. Period. Right? If I have a situation, if something like this happens now, I just let that stuff roll off my back. My little saying is, I'm gonna let you be a fool by yourself, right? I'm not gonna come down and join you in this foolery. Like, that's what I say. Not necessarily to the person, but I'll say it as I'm walking away to myself, just to remind myself, I'm sorry, excuse me, just to remind myself that this is not how we are choosing to show up in this world and deal with this negativity. You're going to own your responsibility. You're going to own your actions. You're going to own your choices, and you're not going to no longer take responsibility for somebody else's choices. No, like, this is not the option, right? Now, I also understand too about unrealistic expectations of ourselves, and I get it. I know I'm gonna have more situations, and I just got to deal with them one at a time, right? And first out the gate, my choice is to not come down. And when I say come down, meaning come down off of the ethical standard that I've set for myself, and come down and join somebody in some foolery. No, I'm just choosing my best not to do that, right? And if I need to respond, it is going to be in a more not not so harsh and nasty, right? Sometimes you just need to say what you need to say and then move on. And that doesn't mean that you got to cuss somebody out or whatever. Even if it's just me saying, well, you know what? I'm not going to join you in this negativity, and then I'll just walk off, right? Or really, I don't say nothing. I just keep it moving, right? Now, I know if it comes to certain, like my daughter or, my mom, somebody, what I'm saying, in my family, I'm going to have to work real hard at how I choose to handle that. But I always work to choose the high road, right? Because it's just, I mean, come on, two people acting a fool just creates more foolery, right? So, after that situation, God tests you. And here I am in the grocery store. This lady, I was looking at the meat, and you know how the meat department has like meat like right down by your thighs where you can kind of like bend over, pick up the meat. And then they also have meat like right in front of you on a shelf. So I was probably less than half a foot away from the meat display. And this lady comes in literally in the middle of me and the meat display in that half a foot area, squeezes herself to the point to where her hair was like in my face, and she was really about uh about to step on my foot, right? Just squeezed herself right on in. No, excuse me. I'm sorry. Can I grab this? Excuse me. Can you hand me that? None of that, right? So my daughter was with me, and she's holding my hand, and um she squeezed my hand, right? And in that moment, I was in my head. Like, I couldn't even move, y'all. Like, I could not even move. I was just so surprised that she would come be so disrespectful and squeeze herself in here. And so I just stood there and I just had to keep saying in my head, you are so much better than this. Don't act a fool with this lady. You are not going to come down to act, like I'm just saying all my little affirmations that I say to keep myself calm, right? And so she got what she wanted, and then she walked off. But she also had two teenage daughters standing over to the side, and they watching this, right? And so when she walked off, I said, wow. I said, what are we teaching our daughters about kindness? I said something like that. What are we teaching our daughters about kindness or respect or something like that? And she turned around, looked at me, and walked off, right? Now, when I grocery shop, it takes forever. Yes, I go down all the aisles. This is just what I do. It takes me a while. So we had been in there for a while. My buggy was pretty much full. But every aisle I went on, this lady was like coming down the aisle. And I was like, okay, God, come on now. Your girl is really trying hard to not show out, right? Because I'm really working hard to pass here, right? I know you testing me right now. So we gonna pass on this one. But please, can you stop letting this lady come on every aisle that I am on? So here I'm shot. I keep going aisle to aisle. It was like this lady was just showing up, right? So I just decided to leave the store. I left the buggy there, all the groceries sitting in the buggy, and me and my child, we left, walked out of that store, and I just ended up going to another store. Like, the struggle was real, and I did not want to fail, and so I just decided to remove myself from the situation altogether, and I left, right? And so ever since then, oh my God, that has been, like I said, probably about 20 plus years ago. And as far as I can look back and think, I have not had another situation like that. I haven't. And it's merely because I have chosen to be responsible for my actions and my choices. Now, not am I saying I'm perfect? No. Because you are going to be tested all the time. But I have chosen to not play a part in being foolish. I've really, worked hard to heal my inner child. I have worked to really build my confidence within my thoughts and my beliefs and my choices. I have really worked to live and be my authentic self, right? I've done this work and I'm just not willing to throw that away. I'm not. I'm not willing to, I'm just not willing to do that, right? I'm not willing to be hypocritical. I'm not willing to go there. It just don't serve me any purpose. Like, it don't serve me any purpose to join somebody and acting a fool. It just creates an environment of foolery and foolishness. And, I'm just stepping so outside of my character, the essence of who I am. I'm not living authentically in that moment. Like, no, I choose not to do that. So I'm hoping that, this took some years to work on, right? And I ain't not a whole lot. Like, it was encapsulated in a 10-year span. It didn't take 10 years, but it took probably a good, and when I put the time frame on this, I mean, like, for me to stop it, period. Right? There were years when I was able to control, right? And then periodically, like, these three events were over, you know, over the years, right? Um and so I guess God was just testing me periodically to see if I was going to respond, how I was going to respond, right? But I tell you, I was so proud of myself on that third response. Like, it took 3 times, y'all. It took, three major situations, but hey, on that third one, I got it, right? I had a lot of little small ones where I failed, where I passed, but I'm happy to say that I am now the controller of my choices and my actions. I know how to be self responsible. I know how to take the responsibility of my actions and let somebody else keep the responsibility of theirs. That's what I want you to be able to do. That's why I'm talking about this six pillar of self-esteem. That's why this episode is so long. That's why I am sharing this story, because I really want you to master this, right? I'm not saying that you're going to be 100% cured of it, because I'm not. I still have life to live. I know there will be some other tests, and I just got to deal with those tests as they come. But I have made a conscious and intentional decision to be conscious in life so that I can give myself the time and space to be able to make a better decision instead of just reacting first, right? I hope that my self disclosure really helps you to understand that, I hope it gives you a good sense of how this is all created sometimes. It because that victim mentality is real, right? It could be victim mentality of being bullied. It can be victim mentality of being sexually abused. It can be victim mentality of neglect, child abuse, um, just so many things, right? But you got to do the work to heal your authentic self. Like, you have to. You got to do the work to heal your inner child. You have to do the work to be able to live authentically, right? To live consciously, self-responsibly. Like, you got to do the work, right? This is not an overnight thing. You might say, like, dog, it took you that long? Yeah, it did, because I'm human, right? And because, everybody's time frame of, learning, being aware, accepting, adjusting, changing, and reconnecting. Everybody's journey is different. The timeline is not the same, right? And so this was something that I really wanted to work to master. And self responsibility, like it says, you got to be the author of your choices and your actions. Okay. So I hope that that was a great example of how to be responsible, right, for your choices and actions. Let's move on, because I know this podcast is getting long. So the rest of this is that we must be the ultimate source of our own fulfillment, that no one else exists to serve us, that no one else is coming to make our life right for us or make us happy or give us self-esteem. At the end of the day, all of that is saying that stop looking for somebody to save you and save yourself. Other people can contribute to your healing, But you got to be willing to do the work. You got to be willing to create this life for yourself. You have to be willing to find out what type of what is quality, what is living authentically, what is happiness, what is all of that for you, right? There is no one who is responsible for the quality of your life. There is no one who is responsible for the amount of self-esteem that you have. There is no one that is responsible for your day-to-day happiness but you, right? I don't know if you guys watch Will Smith's YouTube channel, but he did a video on there where he talked about how Jada was telling him, that he is not responsible for her happiness. She is, right? And when we think about that in the context of being somebody's wife, somebody's girlfriend, right? Even friend, they are not responsible for your happiness. You are. So stop pouring all of yourself into them and thinking that they supposed to pour all of themselves into you. No. You supposed to be full already when you meet your person, right? You're supposed to already be full of self-confidence and happiness and fulfillment and joy and, self-esteem. You're supposed to already be filled with that. You're supposed to be doing that work already. So when they come and they start to pour in you, your cup is overflowing, right? Don't look for somebody to come and pour into you and you're filled with self-doubt, negativity, low self-esteem, you're not happy, self-defeating, all of that. And then you expect for them to pour in all of this goodness and happiness and joy and, confidence about, you and all of that. And then you think it's just going to push out all that negativity. It might temporarily. But guess what? When they leave, all that end up going with them, right? And then you're left with what? An empty cup. Yep. That cup is left empty, right? Because, it's so easy to look for somebody else to bring you, happiness. It really is. It's so easy to do this. But, we just have to understand that we are the creators of our own happiness, right? And you help to create that by being responsible for your choices and your actions. Because when you're not responsible, it brings on a lot of sadness, self-doubt, right? Self-esteem depletion. And so we have to be mindful that it's our responsibility to pour within ourselves goodness. That's why self-care is so important. Self-care is so much more than a manicure and a pedicure. Self-care is making good choices. Self-care is implementing these abilities to be able to make good choices and decisions into your day-to-day life, into how you deal with your money, into how you choose your man, into how you treat other people, into how you are compassionate and empathetic with yourself, right? That's self-care too, right? So when it comes to being self-responsible, we really do have to understand the importance of doing the work to remove all of these negative defense mechanisms that we've created for ourselves in order to heal ourselves from hurt, pain, and letdown, right? So let's think about this. Self-esteem or personal efficacy, like it cannot be received as a gift from other people. This is a gift that you have to give to yourself, right? This is something that is generated within or not at all, right? And among the ways that this is generated, none is more important than learning and practicing self-responsibility, right? It's so powerful to be willing to accept rather than to invade responsibility for your own existence or your own quality of your existence, right? You know, when we're self responsible, we are responsible for our actions, our decisions. We are responsible for our fulfillment of our desires. We are responsible for our choices of companions. We are responsible for how we choose to deal with people at work as well as in your personal life. We're responsible for how we treat ourselves, our body, and we are responsible for our own happiness. This is you really working to take time to appreciate and care for yourself, right? Being self responsible does not mean that you're being responsible for the things that you can't control, right? If you can't control it, you're not responsible for it. So that means that you can't control other people's perception of you, of your choices, of your thoughts, your ideas about your own life and self, right? We are not responsible for other people's actions, but trust and believe we are responsible for our own. Okay? So I wanted to give you one more example and then we're going to close out just to kind of hone in on what it's like to be self-responsible. So this is an example from Nathaniel Branden, right? So he said that he had a client, her name was Henrietta, right? And she was a graphic designer who helped support several able bodied members of her family, right? So she's the caretaker of her family. She was constantly on call for their many crises. And she consulted with Nathaniel because of depression and complaining that she had no life of her own. So she said, how can I take care of myself when everyone else is always needing me? Now, I'm sure that some of you guys can definitely relate to that question. When you are the caretaker of someone or you are that person in your family, you're like that hero in your family and everybody comes to you for everything, right? And it's like it's so busy and it's so consistent that you can't even take time out for your own life, right? So Henrietta says, how can I take care of myself when everyone else is always needing me? So Nathaniel said that he suggested sentence completion, which is what what I give you guys for your homework at the end of these podcasts for the 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem, right? So he gave her the stem and he asked her if she could, you know, create the endings for the stems based off of her feelings. So he asked her to complete this stem. He said, the good thing about being everyone's caretaker is, right? So this is the stem, and she had to complete this based on her feelings. And here's what Henrietta said. So the stem was, the good thing about being everyone's caretaker is, Henrietta said, I feel important. I don't have to think about myself. I don't have to deal with my pain. I don't have to face my fears. I get to feel noble. I don't have to solve any of my problems. I get to suffer and complain a lot, right? Then he gave her another stem, and that stem said, if I took more responsibility for my own life. So let me bag up for a minute. So the first stem, we were able to see that Henrietta finds refuge in being a caretaker. On one end, she complains, but on the other end, she also finds solace in not taking care of her own self and being responsible and being responsible for her own choices and actions by embedding herself into everybody else's problems, right? Because if we looked at her response, like she said, I it makes me feel important. I don't have to think about myself. I don't have to deal with my pain. I don't have to face my fears. I get to feel noble, right? So because she's so focused on everybody else, it's twofold. A, it's hindering her from working on herself, living authentically as she can, and it protects her from being honest with herself about her choices and her actions, right? So then he gave her the second stem, and it said, if I took more responsibility for my own life. So now we're getting into Henrietta facing the fact that she has been, hiding within everybody else's needs, right? Her response to that stem is, I need courage. I'd say no when I wanted to say no. I'd belong to myself. My family would be shocked. I'd have to look within. I wouldn't try to lose myself in other people's problems. That's the key right there. I would tell you about my fears. I would tell you about my frustrations. I would tell you what I want for myself, but have been frightened to go after. Mm, mm, mm. Is that not a good example? That is really good because often we can embed ourselves in other people's issues and problems in order to not face our own issues and problems. But then we'll complain about having to be there for other people when we've made the choice to do so. That ego is a fool, ain't it? Woo! Oh my gosh. All right. Let's wrap this thing up. So, one of the ways that we can avoid self responsibility is by taking on responsibilities that are not properly ours, such as what Henrietta did, right? Concealing the self avoidance under the mantle of virtue, right? It's just so much easier to do this. So, after observing Henrietta, you know, when, basically she's living for others than living for herself, right? And so Henrietta had to work on treating her own needs with the same respect that she was giving her family. Correct? And that's what I want you all to do. Self responsibility is respecting your own needs the same way that you do that for other people. Please understand that, right? So, what we will recognize is that we are, more self responsible in some areas and less so in others. Sometimes we operate more as an adult, right? Sometimes more as a child, right? If we go back to my example, a lot that behavior was me acting from, my inner child's pain, right? So, looking at an area where we know we are, not as self responsible as we need to be, it is useful to ask ourselves, what would our behaviors look like if we were to choose to be more responsible in that area? Right? In practicing that behavior, we empower ourselves, right? So if we were to ask ourselves, what would my behavior look like if I were to choose to be more responsible in the area of anger, right? For me, it helped me to focus more on me, my needs, and to for me to be able to show up in this world as my authentic self, right? Not having to create masks and not having to eject inner pain on other people, not having to, reduce myself to foolery with other people, right? So that's empowering, right? That empowered me to really continue to do the work of learning how to be to live authentically and to continue to let my authentic self show up in this world each and every day, all day, right? So as we build on self responsibility, we also build our own self esteem because it helps us to teach ourselves, well, not, it helps us to trust ourselves when it comes to our thoughts, our choices, our beliefs, our decisions about our life and ourself, right? So y'all know it's some homework coming, right? So make sure that you really, I want you to really listen to this podcast at least 2 times. Because I want you to really hone in on my example, um, and really start working to be more self responsible of your choices and your actions and your life, right? As you live this life and as you work to live authentically and create the quality of life that you want for yourself, or shall I say, even demand the quality, right? You have to be willing to start with self. You can't keep looking outside of yourself, expecting for other people to show up, show out, do what you want them to do, and all of that when you ain't doing it for yourself, right? So I really hope that this episode was helpful. We will definitely build on this as we go on with the rest of the 3 pillars that we have left. So please visit my Instagram, which is Mission Dorothy, and click on our bio link, and you will see a link so that you can access the homework for this episode, right? The directions for the homework will be there, but I really want you to start to right now. And I want you to walk in being more self responsible. I want you to stop placing the blame on other people. I want you to have compassion and empathy for yourself as you go about this change, this journey. Because sometimes when we are self responsible, well, not sometimes, when we're self responsible, it does mean that we're going to see some things about ourselves that we may not like. And I don't want you to be rejecting to yourself when you recognize that. I don't want you to be, mean and downgrade and talk about yourself or call yourself stupid or all of these types of ugly names because you have not been able to master your emotions. It takes effort, time, dedication, consistency to be able to do so. You have to be intentional. You have to be conscious in order to even recognize the areas where you were suffering, right? So please put compassion and empathy at the beginning and at the ending and throughout this journey because you are going to need it. It's not going to be all peaches and cream, right? Some of this is going to be prunes and onions. I know my analogies are something else, but you get the gist, right? So just be kind to yourself as you go about this journey, okay? I do want to close out with this. And that is throughout this process of me learning how to be more responsible for my actions, I also had to think about my daughter and what I was showing her. And what I realized was that I was not showing her the proper way to handle situations such as those that I had. I wasn't showing her the proper way to deal with her emotions, to deal with anger, to deal with conflict. I was not being the best role model when it came to that area of self control, right? And what I really wanted to do was um, understand that, you know, well, let me not say what I really wanted to do, but more of, well, yeah, I mean, that is right. What I really wanted to do was really be a good role model when I know that I was in in every other area. But when it came to being self responsible, mastery of my emotions, when I was dealing with conflict, I was not teaching her properly when it came to that. And part of me wanting to change that was the fact that I was now a mother. And, um, when he spoke with me about the pass and fail, at that time, I wasn't a mom. It was kind of like right before I ended up having my daughter. So, um, my timeline is a little off, but I do know that when he talked to me about the pass and fail, I wasn't a mom just yet, but shortly after I did become one. And I was happy that God had placed him in the right place at the right time for me, so that I can start recognizing what I was doing and start working to change it as I had become a mother, and not wanting to live in this space as I raise my child, right? So I'm just so thankful that I did learn, how to be, she saw the before and she saw the after, right? And at the end of the day, I don't believe in trying to act perfect for our children. I don't. Sometimes experience is the best teacher. And in that, I'm not proud of the fact that she saw me act a fool, and show up unauthentically in this world. But I am proud of the fact that she was able to see me change and grow. And I want, you know, as I stated at the beginning, as mothers, we want our kids to be resilient. That way, when they fall, they do know how to get up and dust themselves off and learn from their mistakes and work to move on. And I think that she definitely was able to see that within her mom, that her mother is not this perfect individual. This is someone who was flawed and worked to change that, and as I do this podcast now, do this episode, my daughter is she understands me. She know her mother. She know how hard I try to um teach and be a good role model for her, right? She's a young woman now, and so she is, at the age of being self responsible, and she's, having to be responsible for her choices and actions now as well. And not to say that she wasn't before she became a young woman, but, she's grown now, and so she really do have to be um, responsible, self-responsible. When they're children, us as mothers, we try our best to, do all those things for them, as far as just kind of providing happiness and working to help build their self-esteem and all of that. But they do get to an age to where they have to be able to take what you've instilled in them and utilize it properly so that they can do the same for themselves. And so, I am proud of the fact that she is, able to see a better version of her mother, right? Um, and so I am just going to close with that. And, I hope that as you guys go about this journey, please understand that you are going to as I stated, have to have compassion and empathy for yourself, because there are going to be some things that you recognize that you don't like. So I recognize that this is a very long podcast episode. So I'm going to stop talking. I told y'all I can go on for days about this, but just go ahead and start the work. Start with your homework exercise. So please visit our Instagram page. Our Instagram is Mission Dorothy, and download the worksheet for this homework assignment for this episode. Download the worksheets for your homework. And please remember that you have to do the work in order to create and make and sustain change, right? And so I'm trying to provide this platform so that you guys can, be educated and introduced to, some good material that can help change the quality of your life and help you live authentically and show up as your authentic self. And that homework piece is a part of that. So make sure that you do the work. Go and download your worksheets that I created for you so that you can go ahead and get started today. All right. So the directions will be on the worksheets. And please share this podcast and the episodes with those that you feel can be beneficial. Please share it with everybody that you know. And also, please leave us some love in the comment section. Not really here for any negativity, but show us some love in the comments. Let me know if this information is helpful to you, because that would definitely help me to continue to strive to deliver. And I just want to know if you guys are doing the work and if you are, creating positive change in your life. Let me know what's going on. Okay. All right. So until the next episode, have a beautiful day, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye.